Girivanadhare Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadhare Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Brahmachari Yamuna Tira Brahmachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadhare Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadhare Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Brahmachari Yamuna Tira Brahmachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajika Acharya Stotra Sata Shri Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Vyantara Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Ki Nitai Gaur Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Seeing as how we're celebrating Govardhan Puja today, we're going to read from the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 10th Canto, Chapter 25, Text 1. Sri Sukha Uvacha Indrastadatmanam manapujam Vijanya Vihatam Nripa Gopabhya Krishna Natebhyo Nandadhibhya Sakchupkopya Sri Sukha Uvacha Indrastadatmana Pujam Vijanya Vihatam Nripa Gopebhyam Krishna Natebhyo Nandadibhyasya Chakopaha. Sri Sukha Uvacha Indrastadatmana Pujam Vignaya Vihitam Nipa Gopebhya Krishnanatabhyo. Thank you very much. Sri Sukha Vacha Shraddhatmatmana Pujam Vinaya Vivitam Ritpa Gopebhya Krishnanatebhyo Nanda Biyas Chakopaya. Ladies. Sri Sukha Vacha Indrastadatmanam Pujam Vigyayam Vibhata Kripa Gopebhya Krishnanatebhyo Nandiyadibhyasya Chopaya. Sri Sukha Vacha Indrastadatmanam Pujam Viharam Vihitam Ripa Gopebhya Krishnanatebhyo Nandadi Yaschakopaya. Sri Sukha Vacha. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, Indraha, Lord Indra, Tada, then, Atmanaha, his own, Pujam, worship, Vijanai, understanding, Vihatum, diverted, Nripa, O King Parikshit, O King Parikshit, Gopibhyaha, at the cowherd, Krishna Natebhya, who took Krishna as their Lord, Nanda Nandanaha, headed by Nanda Maharaj, Chukupaha, he became angry. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Sukha Goswami said, My dear King Parikshit, when Indra understood that his sacrifice had been put aside, he became furious with Nanda Maharaj and the other cowherd men who were accepting Krishna as their Lord. Purport by His Divine Grace. At the very beginning of this chapter, Sukadev Goswami reveals the foolishness of Indra and the absurdity of his anger. Indra was frustrated because the residents of Vrindavan accepted Sri Krishna as their Lord. But the simple fact is that Lord Krishna is the Lord, not only of the residents of Vrindavan, but of all that exists, including Indra himself. Thus Indra's petulant reaction was ridiculous. As the common saying goes, pride goes before a fall. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshurim Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we're celebrating the wonderful event of Govardhan Puja. The official date was during the week sometime, but today we're celebrating here a wonderful festival at this magnificent temple. You walk into the temple room today and you see the beautiful decorations, and your body and your soul and your mind are lifted in transcendence. We're so fortunate, you know, all of us are very, very fortunate. So this pastime of Govardhan Hill. So what I was hoping to do, I want to read the summary first of chapter 24. The purports were actually by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, not Srila Prabhupada. So I wanted to read first the lead up to this chapter, the lifting of Govardhan Hill, and this first chapter is called Worshipping Govardhan Hill. And then there are some points that I noted of things that we can learn from this Leela, this Krishna Leela. So in this chapter, Lord Krishna crushes the pride of Indra by prohibiting the sacrifice intended for him and imitating substitute sacrifice in worship of Govardhan Hill. When Sri Krishna saw the cowherd men busily preparing for a sacrifice to Indra, he inquired about it from their king, Nanda. Nanda explained that the rain given by Indra enables all living entities to maintain their lives, and therefore the sacrifice would be executed to satisfy him. Krishna responded, "It's because of karma alone that living entities take their response. It's because of their karma alone and the birth in certain bodies experience varieties of happiness and suffering in that body, and there it can give up, and there it is up as the karma pertaining to its run out. Thus, it is karma alone that is our enemy, our friend, our guru, our Lord, and it is karma alone, and Indra can do nothing to alter the happiness and distress of anyone. For everyone it is tightly bound by his karmic reactions. The material modes of goodness, passion and ignorance bring about the creation, maintenance and destruction of the world. The clouds give forth rain when they are impelled by the mode of passion, and the cowherds prosper to protect the cows. Furthermore, the cowherds' prosper residence is in the forest and on the hills. Therefore, you should offer worship to the cows, the brahmanas, and Govardhan Hill." After Krishna spoke thus, he arranged for the cowherd men to worship Govardhan, and with the paraphernalia collected for the sacrifice to Indra. He then assumed a huge, unprecedented, transcendental form and devoured all the food and the other offerings presented to Govardhan. As he did so, he proclaimed to the cowherd community that although he had worshipped Indra for so long, he had never appeared in person, whereas Govardhan himself had now manifested before their eyes and eaten their offerings of food. Therefore they should all now offer obeisances to Govardhan Hill, and then Lord Krishna joined the cowherds in offering obeisances to his only newly assumed form. So this is what happened before this scenario. So the second chapter is then about how Krishna lifts Govardhan Hill, because they did this whole turnabout, you know. So Govardhan Hill is so important in Vaishnava worship. We have Govardhan here, a shalagram of Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, and it's an important part of our work and our service. And so many devotees also have Giri Govardhan at home that they worship. So even in Lord Chaitanya's time in the Charitamrita, it tells us how some devotees, a devotee once brought to Vrindavan, from Vrindavan to Jagannath Puri, a small stone of Govardhan Hill for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Lord Chaitanya was gifted this, and he was so happy on receiving this that he actually tied Govardhan in a little sachet and kept it around his neck. So he had this Govardhan Shila on his chest, and he wrapped it, and he was constantly wearing it for a long, long time while he was in Jagannath Puri. And it's described that he would feel sentiments of ecstasy. When he felt ecstasy for Krishna, he would pick up the Shalagram Shila and put it to his head and put it to his chest and press it to his eyes. So this was part of the whole feeling that Lord Chaitanya had of Krishna in the form of Govardhan Shila. So it's described by Kaviraj Goswami that 24 hours a day, that Srila was constantly soaked in the tears of Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya was just constantly in ecstasy. At one time, he eventually gave this this Govardhan Srila to Raghunath Das Goswami. But for many, many years he would carry this. So this is how important it is, and Lord Chaitanya is the example for all of us. And it was interesting that yesterday we were hearing the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada's final Leela on this planet. And there also, Govardhan was very important. One of the last things that Srila Prabhupada wanted to do was to circumambulate Govardhan Hill. We were reading and we heard how Prabhupada was really, really ill and hardly had any strength. But he realized that within 3 days it would be Govardhan Puja. So he said to his disciples, or his disciples suggested actually, it was Lokanath Swami, suggested that perhaps he would like to do a parikrama around Govardhan. And Prabhupada said, yeah, this is a wonderful idea, I want to do this. So Srila Prabhupada said, I cannot walk, but you can take me on a bullock cart. And we will have kirtan all the way around Govardhan Hill, and that will bring me great happiness. So all the devotees went, oh God. And they said, please, please, Srila Prabhupada, don't go. They were pleading with him, especially Bhavananda, Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And they were saying, no, we're begging you, please don't go. If you go, Srila Prabhupada, the Kaviraj says that you will die in 5 minutes. And they were saying, pleading with Prabhupada, please, we need you so much, you just can't go. And Prabhupada turned around and he said, why are you talking about death? Death will come whether we go or not go. I will die at Govardhan Hill and that will be auspicious. But I don't think I will die. Krishna will protect me, he said. Take me. That's my order. So Prabhupada actually gave the order to take him around Govardhan Hill. So we know that a disciple can't argue with Guru. If Guru is given an order, that's it. What do? We follow. Okay. It's the Guru's thing. So, but a god brother can argue with him. So then what they did was they got a very dear god brother, Krishnadas Kaviraj, Krishnadas Maharaj, Babaji Maharaj, and he pleaded with Prabhupada. He said, Prabhupada, you can't go. You're breaking the hearts of your disciples, and your devotees are pleading with you. And then Prabhupada said, if you want me to stay, I will stay. He said, I must be above and beyond any of my own desires, Prabhupada said. I must respond to the love of my devotees. So this is, again, that whole Leela with Govardhan. So there are lessons that we can learn from this Govardhan Leela. It's interesting, from this first section that we read about the lead-up, how Krishna convinced the cowherd men that they shouldn't perform this sacrifice for Indra, that actually it's karma, that this is happening, that the rains are coming. If you've been good, then you'll receive good karma. So Krishna was explaining how if you just do good work, then things will work out for you. So this is this karma mimamsa philosophy. And so the other thing that Krishna was pointing out, and these are separate different lessons that we can learn from this Govardhan Leela, is that we shouldn't become too ritualistic in our service to Krishna. So deity worship is a wonderful thing if it's connected with love. But so often in my service also, when I'm dealing with the Hindu community and different other communities, a lot of the different worship that they do for either a shalagram or and there are devotees all over the world that are having different shalagrams, not necessarily within ISKCON, but other places. And they have deity worship, and it's more a matter of ritual. So Krishna was pointing out, and he'll point out later on, that actually if you're worshipping me, or you're worshipping Govardhan, or you're worshipping a deity of me, or Govardhan Shila, it should be done with love. It should be seen that this is a personality. So it's so much so that we see here in Melbourne Temple how wonderfully, for the last over 50 years, the deities have been worshipped here. And it's because of the love of the devotees that instill that power like I said when I walked in this morning, again, you see the beautiful decorations and the beautiful way the deities are dressed, and it fills you. But it's because of the love that the devotees are putting into it. Sometimes you can go to a different Hindu temple, and it's the deities are there, the rituals are there and everything, but there's no bhakti, there's no love. So that's one of the lessons that we should learn. So if we're worshipping Govardhan and Govardhan, then we should actually have this mood of love. And this was exemplified by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where he was constantly in this mood of ecstasy, and any time he felt ecstasy, he put the Govardhan Shila to his eyes, to his chest, to his forehead. So this is a wonderful thing. The other thing I wanted to mention, which is very pertinent in today's society, as most of you know, because it's dealing with the whole Indra pastimes, and Indra is the Lord of Rain, as we shall soon see. Australia at the moment is in the grip of one of the worst droughts that it's ever experienced. And one thing that we can understand is that these, in a sense, do come about because of bad actions. It doesn't just happen by chance. Some people may say it's global warming, some people may say it's something else, but ultimately these negative things that are happening in the environment are also due to the karma and the negative sinful activities that mankind is committing. And so thereby, to counteract that, the devotees are out there and they're preaching and they're presenting Krishna consciousness. This is what Prabhupada wanted. Last night, I was watching a video of Srila Prabhupada when he was in Mauritius. And it's the final parts of, I just wanted to have a look at different parts of Prabhupada's life. And Prabhupada said, in Mauritius could be the first Krishna conscious country. And he was so astounded at how they were taking to Krishna consciousness and how the Prime Minister came, and it was just wonderful. And one of the things that Prabhupada said, he said, I'm not so interested in India. In India, even at the end of his life, he said, in India they don't respect me so much. But in the West I'm treated so nicely. And that's why at the end of his life he wanted to go to London and he wanted to do a trip around the world again, right at the end. Because at that time in Mayapur, the authorities in Mayapur, the government in Mayapur were harassing the devotees. And Bhavananda and I think Jayapataka Maharaj were arrested. And Prabhupada said they were actually after me. So he wanted to go to, because a lot of us yesterday were thinking, why would Prabhupada want to go to England at the time when he was in Vrindavan and he was very weak? But he wanted to go where devotees actually offered love to him. And so he was very enthusiastic and he said, the West actually knows how to treat me. There are so many good things in the Western world. So many good things. If only we can convince them to stop eating the cow. Prabhupada said that. If only we can convince them to stop eating the cow, then actually the West will make such rapid advancement. So, in the same token, if we can encourage devotees to go out and preach more and present Srila Prabhupada's teachings, then these calamities that are happening in the world will cease. And this is the need of all devotees to go out and preaching. Actually, it was one interesting thing that I want to mention. As you know, I deal with interfaith, and we had an interfaith meeting here the other week in Port Phillip. And one of the coordinators of that interfaith said, we saw your Hare Krishnas chanting in the streets the other day. And I said, wow, that's wonderful. And she said, it was an amazing thing. I've been teaching my daughter about different faith traditions. I come from a Christian tradition, and her grandfather or grandmother comes from an Islamic tradition. And so I've been teaching this little girl, she's 4 years old, right? I've been teaching this girl about Lord Jesus and Allah and Muhammad. And when she saw the Hare Krishna, she wanted to know about that religion. And so I was teaching her about, I have a friend, he's a Hare Krishna, and they worship Krishna, and Krishna is God. And the little girl was so fascinated in Krishna consciousness that this girl constantly chants Hare Krishna. 4-year-old girl. She said, I can't stop my child from chanting. She says, I love this chanting so much. Oh, Mummy, I love chanting Krishna's name. So this is just an indication that if we're out there preaching, it awakens the dormant life, spiritual life of so many people, you know. So this is that Sankirtan movement. So Krishna wanted to establish to his devotees that it is an offense to him in the presence, when he is present, to worship demigods. So again, Prabhupada didn't mind that people worship the demigods, but if you're a devotee of Krishna, then you should simply worship Krishna. There's no need to worship Ganesh, Saraswati for education, and so on, Lord Shiva for a good wife or husband or whatever. We just simply go to Krishna. But in the same token, Prabhupada was saying, if the Westerners simply stop eating the cow, they can offer their other meats, other animals to the demigods, to Durga. And that will be okay. So Prabhupada was amazing like that. So we have no other obligation. Krishna wanted to show that if you are not a devotee, then it's your duty to worship the demigods. But if they are given so many benefits and gifts, and you're ungracious to do that, but if you are a devotee of Krishna, then you have to take care of Krishna. And Krishna will take care of you. Sarvadharma parijagya mamikam saranam vraja. If you surrender to Krishna, everything will be okay. Surrender your life to Krishna. So Krishna's mercy is curbing pride. Now this is a big one. Indra was full of pride. He was just saturated with pride. You know, how could they do this? They've been doing this for so long. I am the provider of rain. You're not. So in a sense, we are all filled with pride. And that's why Lord Chaitanya's in his prayers, the most predominant prayer that he says is that we have to be as humble as a blade of grass. Tanora Pisanishena. We have to be so humble, just so humble. If we practice humility and understand that every single thing comes from Krishna, everything is controlled and owned by Krishna, then we start making headway. But we're locked in this selfish sort of mentality, and that's why we're here. But to break that mentality, we have to develop that humility, humbleness. And that means not being proud of anything. If someone is telling us to do something, then we should take it with all good intention and work on that. You know, we shouldn't be so puffed up, how could this person do this to me? You know, we should simply accept and work accordingly. Even when it comes to our own body, we can be proud of our own body. Oh, I'm so healthy, I'm so fit, I'm this, I'm that. Or the other way, I don't care about my body. But within our body, there are literally millions of other living entities living, which we are responsible for. So we are the little Indra for this mass of living entities that we carry around with us. And so in a sense we have to be very respectful to those living entities too. And in humility we have to look after our bodies, making sure it's fed properly. Not that we selfishly think, oh, I want to eat pakoras all day long, or I want to eat fatty things. We've got to look after ourselves as well. So we have to curb our pride. So the Brijbasis, all they wanted was that they just loved Krishna. And Krishna was asked to do that. So here we got this situation now where Krishna has instructed the cowherd men and women of Vrindavan that I want you to worship Govardhan. And Govardhan, you know, they said, well, isn't Indra going to get angry with us? And they said, well, you know, Krishna has told us that it's going to be okay. Now apparently Garga Muni at one stage had said at the birth of Krishna, that the astrologer Garga Muni said that actually Krishna will protect you anytime. And so they, even if you didn't know that Krishna was God, they said Krishna will protect you. If there's any danger, Krishna will always protect you. And so Nanda Maharaj said, well, Krishna said that he'll protect us. And so thereby they went ahead with this sacrifice. So I just wanted to read something. So they performed this wonderful sacrifice, this wonderful ceremony. And how wonderful! As they were circumambulating Govardhan Hill, mountains and mountains of bhoga, wonderful foodstuffs, they were all chanting the glories of Krishna and Balaram. And after the ceremony was over, everyone was so happy, so joyful, and Krishna said, "Now with this prasad, make sure that afterward that after the word it must be offered very humbly to Govardhan." So they placed all this prasad bhoga on the hill. So they were offering it, and right before their eyes, Govardhan assumed a personal form. And this personal form grew so big, and it's non-different from Krishna himself. So can you imagine this huge mountain? Govardhan is not the same mountain that we see at the moment. Govardhan is shrinking. So Govardhan at that stage was huge, and so this mountain became a personality. Then Govardhan began to speak and said, "I am Govardhan. I am the Supreme. I have come to accept all your offerings." And then right before their eyes, the Govardhan Hill, with great pleasure, ate all their offerings. So this hill, can you imagine? This hill started consuming the bhoga that was offered to him. And after this wonderful feast took place, everyone was so happy. They all danced in transcendental ecstasy, remembering Krishna in their heart, in the hearts of hearts, and they all returned home. So even when they were offering, like Govardhan manifested himself, if you can imagine in your mind's eye, this hill all of a sudden becoming a personality and consuming all the wonderful foodstuffs, right? I mean, that's pretty amazing. And they were all dancing and chanting, and then they offered obeisances to Govardhan. And even Krishna, being the example of humility, similarly also offered his obeisances to Govardhan Hill. So this was really amazing. So now we come to this section where they've done this, and now we had this purport where Sukadeva Goswami says, "My dear King Parikshit, when Indra understood that his sacrifice had been put aside, he became furious with Nanda Maharaj and the other cowherd men who were accepting Krishna as their Lord." So this was like, what? But I mean, you would reckon, and so you can understand that it's also a Leela pastime that Indra was actually covered. Because you would reckon, even if you're a demigod, if you saw this mountain all of a sudden consuming food, you'd think, no, something's going on here, Something is pretty mystical. So I just want to read some of the different translations after that. Angry, Indra sent forth the clouds of universal destruction known as Samvataka. Imagining himself the supreme controller, he spoke as follows, imagining himself to be the supreme controller. Indra said, "Just see how these cowherd men living in the forest have become so greatly intoxicated by their prosperity. They have surrendered to the ordinary human being, Krishna, and thus they have offended the gods. Their taking shelter of Krishna is just like a foolish attempt of men who abandon transcendental knowledge of the self and instead try to cross over the great ocean of material existence in the false boat of fruitive ritual sacrifices. Thus the cowherd men have acted inimically towards me by taking shelter of this ordinary human being, this Krishna, who thinks himself very wise, but who is simply a foolish, arrogant, over-talkative little child." This is Indra. Can you imagine this guy? "The clouds of destruction," King Indra said, "the prosperity of these people has been made mad with pride, and their arrogance is backed up by Krishna. Now go and remove their pride and bring their animals to destruction." So he's summoning these clouds. "I will follow you to Vraja, riding on my elephant, Airavata, and taking with me the swift and powerful wind gods to decimate the cowherd village of Nanda Maharaj." Sukadeva Goswami said, "On Indra's order, the clouds of universal destruction released untimely from their bonds when the cowherd went to the cowherd pastures of Nanda Maharaj. There they began to torment the inhabitants by powerfully pouring down torrents of rains upon them. So if you've ever been in a really heavy rainstorm, it's just like, wow, this is so difficult to overcome. Propelled by the fearsome wind gods, and the clouds blazed with lightning bolts and roaring with thunder, they hurled down hailstones. As the clouds released torrents of rain as thick as massive columns, the earth was submerged in floods, and the high ground could no longer be distinguished from the low ground. The cows and animals shivered from the expected rains and wind, and the cowherd men and ladies, pained by the cold, all approached Lord Govinda for shelter. Trembling from the stress brought about by the severe rainfall, and trying to cover their heads and the calves with their own bodies, the cows approached the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The cowherd men and the cowherd women addressed the Lord. Krishna, Krishna, O most fortunate one, please deliver the cows from the wrath of Indra. O Lord, you are so affectionate to your devotees, please save all of us. Seeing the inhabitants of his Gokul rendered practically unconscious by the onslaught of hail and blasting wind, the Supreme Lord Hare understood that this was the work of angry Indra. So Krishna said to himself, because we have stopped his sacrifice, Indra has caused this unusual, fierce, unseasonable rain together with terrible winds and hail. By my mystic power, I will completely counteract the disturbance caused by Indra. Demigods like Indra are proud of their opulence, and out of foolishness, they falsely consider themselves the Lord of the universe. I will now destroy such ignorance. Since the demigods are endowed with the mode of goodness, the false pride of considering oneself the Lord should certainly not affect them. When I break the false prestige of those bereft of goodness, my purpose is to bring them relief. I am therefore protected. I must therefore protect the cowherd community by my transcendental potency, for I am their shelter, I am their master, and indeed they are my own family. After all, I have taken a vow to protect these devotees. Having said this, Lord Krishna, who is Vishnu himself, picked up Govardhan Hill and with one hand held it aloft, just as easy as a child holds up a little mushroom. So the thing that I've always wondered, it's mentioned here that Krishna, that Lord Indra was saturating the place with water, right? Now it's understood that actually Krishna, when they went to approach Krishna for protection, the cowherd men and the cows actually went to, because remember after the feast and Govardhan had eaten the feast, they all went home. It was a festival. And that's when Indra got upset. So Krishna was in his home. And they all went to Krishna's home and said, Krishna, Krishna, this is what's happening. And Krishna, by his potency in Yoga Maya, actually never got wet at all. Not one drop of water ever fell on Krishna. Not any place where he placed his foot was there wet. So the thing that I was always wondering, if Govardhan was so saturated by water and the rain was lifted, when Krishna actually lifted Govardhan Hill with his little pinky, like lifting up a mushroom, why was it that the water didn't come underneath and flood? So Krishna had made the arrangement that actually everything underneath Govardhan Hill stayed dry. Even when he walked to Govardhan Hill, he never got one drop of water on him. So this must have sent some sort of shockwave to Indra, thinking, what's going on here? So Krishna had this hill up on his little pinky, and underneath, for 7 days, Krishna was there protecting the cowherd men and women. And they were so in ecstasy. I mean, you can imagine, what a day. First of all, a mountain starts talking to you and consuming all the offerings that you've had. Then Krishna, this little boy, no bigger than one of these guys, says, oh, I'll just lift this thing up, you know. And then underneath, it was like a big festival. And for 7 days and nights, they didn't need to drink, they didn't need to eat, they just had kirtan and just glorifying Krishna and just had fun. This is the amazing thing of Krishna consciousness. It's just Krishna will protect you at any time. So the Lord then addressed the cowherd community. This is when Krishna lifted the Govardhan Hill. The Lord then addressed the cowherd community. O mother, O father, O residents of Raja, if you wish, you may now come under the hill with your cows. You should have no fear that this mountain will fall on you. My hands fall from my hand, and don't be afraid of the wind and rain, for your deliverance from these afflictions has already now been arranged. So their minds thus pacified by Lord Krishna, they all entered beneath the hill, where they found ample room for themselves and all their cows and wagons and servants and priests and all other members of all the community. So this is huge, thousands and thousands of people. Lord Krishna, forgetting hunger and thirst, and putting aside all considerations for personal pleasure, stood there holding up the hill for 7 days as people of Vraja gazed upon him. Now the thing with the cowherd boys, they were such friends and such comrades that they said, oh, we can't let Krishna just do this, we'll help him. And so they all got sticks and started to hold it up. They said, we're helping too, Krishna. So when Krishna observed the exhibition of when Indra then observed the exhibition of Lord Krishna's mystical power, he became astonished, pulled down from his platform of false pride, and his intention thought he ordered his clouds to desist. So all of a sudden he came to his senses. And this happens to us also sometimes. When we're overly puffed up, and as Prabhupada said in that purport, pride precedeth a fall. If we're overly puffed up, Krishna just, they actually, the analogy that Prabhupada gives sometimes is like, when you puff up, it's like a balloon. And then sometimes somebody can come across and just get a pin and go, whoo, finished. So this was Indra. Indra was being completely deflated from his pride. Seeing that the fierce winds had now ceased, the sky had become clear of rain clouds, and the sun had risen, Lord Krishna, the lifter of Govardhan Hill, spoke to the cowherd community as follows. Lord Krishna said, my dear cowherd men, please go out with your wives and children and possessions. Give up your fear. The wind and the rain have stopped, and the rivers' high water have subsided. After collecting their respective cows and loading their paraphernalia into their wagons, the cowherd men went out. The women and children and elderly persons gradually followed. While all living creatures looked upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he put down the hill in its ordinary place, just as it had stood before. All the residents of Vrindavan were overwhelmed with ecstatic love, and they came forward and greeted Krishna accordingly to their individual relationships with him. Some embraced him, some bowed down to him, and so forth. And the cowherd women presented water mixed with yogurt and unbroken barley corns as a token of honor, and they showered auspicious benedictions upon him. Mother Yashoda, Mother Rohini, Nanda Maharaj and Balaram, the greatest of all the strong, all embraced Krishna. Overwhelmed with affection, they have offered him their blessings. In heaven, O King, all the demigods, including the Siddhas, Sadhas, Gandharvas and Karanas, sang the praises of Lord Krishna and showered down flowers in great satisfaction. My dear Parikshit, the demigods in heaven resoundingly played their conch shells and kettle drums, and the best of the Gandharvas, led by Tumburu, began to sing. Surrounded by his loving cowherd boyfriends and girlfriends, Lord Balaram Krishna went off to their place where they had been tending the cows, and the cowherd girls returned to their homes singing joyfully about lifting Govardhan Hill and other glorious deeds by Lord Krishna who had so deeply touched their hearts. So this is the pastimes. And then, of course, we have Indra's reaction, the happiness and then Indra realizing his mistake. And Indra, the king of heaven, knowing the offense that he had committed, he came down and he placed his golden crown at the lotus feet of Sri Gopal, and he explained to Krishna that you are so kind, so merciful, you always protect the promise that you will never neglect your devotees. You have again reminded me that I am only the insignificant servant aspiring to the dust of your lotus feet. And then the elephant carrier, Airavata, with the water of the Ganges, offered Abhishek to Sri Krishna. So this elephant sprayed Lord Krishna with Ganges water. That is why on this day, we perform Abhishek ceremony for Lord Krishna. I don't know if we're doing that today, are we? We're not. Maybe we did it on the other day. And that the Sarabikas of Vrindavan, out of their gratitude, were offering Abhishek with limitless amounts of milk coming from their udders because of love for Krishna. So again, because of today, we have this wonderful festival where we're building Giri Govardhan, the big hill, and there will be so many milk sweets on top of this hill. So in celebration of this wonderful pastime, we circumambulate with great kirtan and great fun, men and women together, chanting the holy name of Krishna and Govardhan. So Govardhan Puja is celebrated in the remembrance of the great kindness of the Lord. The kindness of the Lord upon the Vrijbasis remind us that the topmost jewel of all existence was right amongst them. Krishna is right amongst them. Why should they worship anyone else? So Krishna is within us, each one of us. Krishna is here in the temple. Radha Ballabha is there. Gaurnitai, Sri Sri Jagannathji. Why should we go anywhere else? Why do we need to fear anything? We're totally under the protection of Krishna. We don't have to ask Krishna to give this or give that. We simply serve him in loving, and he'll make all the arrangements. He knows everything, past, present and future, and he'll give anything that we want, anything we want. And what we want is simply to serve him. It's simply to be a servant, a loving servant, remembering to squash our pride and to be humble at all times. So our prayer to Krishna. So there's no need to ask for Krishna for anything. The one question is, my dear Lord, how can I serve you? How can I serve you more? How can I be more your agent? How can I be more responsive to what you want? And this is then again coming up. We don't know ourselves what we should be doing, and so thereby we ask the spiritual master, please guide and direct us. What do you want us to do? And the order that Prabhupada gave at the time of his passing was, the one thing that I insist that you all do is please cooperate with one another. Please cooperate with one another. So we have to do that. And the best way to do that is, again, to cooperate by chanting Hare Krishna very diligently, very, very focused, and we will get great benefit. So there are storms coming in all of our lives. But this is the material world. And when the storms come in all different sorts, it may not be necessarily the rain and hail, and that's sometime here in Melbourne that may be the case. As it is today, it's raining. So, but there are storms of other things that afflict us, whether it's illnesses, sicknesses that may come, difficulties within our marriages, within our relationships, so many things. There are storm clouds at times. We understand that Krishna is there and he will protect us if we simply turn to him and understand that nothing is so big that Krishna can't conquer. This seemed like to the Vrajvasis, this storm, this hail, this was just completely incomprehensible what Indra was throwing at them. But to Krishna it was nothing, and nothing affected him. And simply this small child said, oh, I'll just lift up the hill and protect thousands of the residents of Vrindavan. This is the power of Krishna. And if anybody ever says in today's society or in the past, oh, I am God, I am Bhagavan, or I'm an incarnation of Krishna, the simple test is you just say, there's a big mountain over there, please lift it up on your little pinky. If you can't do it, then you say, thanks very much, but you're not God. So again, Krishna is Giriraj, he lifted Govardhan Hill for the mercy to protect all from misery and suffering. Now, the one thing that I did want to mention is that we are having so many wonderful festivals, and I've been here for 40 years. Every year we have ongoing festivals. Even today, the Damodarastakam prayers. Everything is so uplifting. We're like the residents of Vrindavan. We're like the residents of Vrindavan here in Melbourne Temple. This is so auspicious. Krishna is there with us. Giri Govardhan is there with us. Every week, practically, we have a wonderful festival of some description. It was Diwali, it was Janmashtami, it was this, it was that. But the festivals are overwhelmingly beautiful. The devotees make such beautiful decorations. The deities are so wonderfully worshipped. For us, this is a great boon in our lives. In not only our lives, but in our children's lives. This temple is a solace for all of us. And so sometimes within a community has to come together to actually do something wonderful for the community. When the authorities, like Nanda Maharaj was the principal leader, when the authorities ask something of us, then we should respond. You know, there was this great saying that JFK, John F. Kennedy, President of the United States, probably one of the best presidents of the United States that ever was, he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." So sometimes in our position here, it is not easy to run this little Vrindavan. It's not easy to run a wonderful temple in this material world. It takes money. It's unfortunate that that's the case, but it takes money to run this wonderful temple, which we all get so much benefit from. Don't neglect it. Don't feel pride, "Oh, I am owed this. I'm a devotee of Krishna. This should be mine." That's pride. That's not humility. Ask what we can do, what can I do for the temple? Now, at this point in our time, there is a need for all of us to come together and work together and contribute together to make this temple go on from strength to strength to strength. There is the area at the back here, the kitchen for the deities, that hasn't been finished. For whatever reason, it hasn't been finished. We now have to finish it. The builders are locked in to help us finish. And so we can have a wonderful kitchen where we can offer prasadam directly for Krishna. This is a deity kitchen. We've never had the deity kitchen since we started the construction work. We want that Radha Ballabha have their own kitchen. So we need the funds to do that. And the other thing is that one of the fundraising, generating aspects of Krishna consciousness is crossways. We have to, due to circumstances, we were put out of the other crossways, our old crossways. That was generating a lot of Lakshmi for this temple, to provide the festivals, to provide the ongoing security, to provide the things for your children to grow in Krishna consciousness, to provide us with the sanctity and safety, to hear every day wonderful lectures by advanced devotees, like Suresh Prabhu, who's here at the moment, giving these wonderful seminars. Then Devamrita Maharaj comes. Next is Kadamba Kanana Maharaj is coming. All the time, absorbing us, making us more and more Krishna conscious, making us more and more closer to going back home, back to Godhead. Now, the temple is asking, please help in this area to continue that on. So on behalf of the temple, being an executive, there may have been some lack of communication. That's not a concern. It's not a major thing. And if there's mistakes being made by the executive, then we take that on board and we humbly say, okay, we're learning also, we're with you, we're working as well. We'll do our best to not have that happen again, but we need your support now. We need all of the devotee support, and that we achieve the targets that we want to do, that we can finish off the beautiful deity kitchen for Radha Ballabha, Gaura-Nitai, Jagannath-ji, Baladev and Subhadra, and for Srila Prabhupada, and make it a wonderful, all-rounded temple. Not just something for ourselves, but for many more people to come here as well. So I'm going to stop with that. There is so many lessons that we can learn from the Govardhan Leela. I know it's late, but the program continues on. So this afternoon there's going to be the wonderful Jagya of running around Govardhan Hill. Get fit, because we're going to be chanting and dancing a lot. So on that, Prabhus, please support the fundraising dinner that's coming up. Srila Prabhupada ki.